So I find a lot of episode ideas from going through like Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff. But then sometimes like I would see something and then I'm like, it won't cover like an entire episode. It's like when you have a story idea, but if you're like, this will just like do for a short story. It's not like an entire novel. And then I'm just like, I should just use those for our intros to be like, yeah, we'll just talk about this little tidbit before we move along.
I was binge watching a lady yesterday who gives writing tips, so I'm with you. Go ahead.
So I was watching this video, whether it's true or not, who knows? You know, it's a thought that counts. But it literally says in Michigan, 300 volunteers put their day on hold to move 9,100 books from Serendipity Books to help the owners move. And so the video is basically like all these people like standing on the sidewalk, just like literally moving books from one person to the next person. And I'm like, that is like the smartest thing I've ever heard in my life. But that can only happen in like a small town, I feel. I don't think it will happen in like New York City. Like that would be way too big.
I feel like I see that pop up every few years. I don't even know the base, like when it really happened or anything anymore. As book lovers, we have to unite, right? We have to support what we love.
Just imagine the conversation when you go to your boss and you're like, sorry, I have to take leave today. I have to go move books.
I think that's the best excuse to miss work.
Right?
The boss should be like, yeah, let's all go.
Team building. Let's do this.
You know what's shocking me today, though? This is the last episode of season 4.
My goodness. I mean, time flies when you're having fun, right? And I mean, 4 seasons. It's almost like 2 years that we've been doing this podcast. And just think of like all the people that we've actually had on this podcast, like all the knowledge that we have gained and will gain in the future.
I'm going to be learning more from running my own podcast than I already know. And that is just the most amazing thing about it, I think.
Exactly. Cheers to an entire season, getting through it.
So today I'm drinking mango latte.
Those are words I do not understand. I understand mango.
It's an Indian drink from India. There's a few different ways to do it. I do mine with mango and a little bit of heavy cream and some Greek yogurt.
Interesting. So I'm going for a classic. I'm drinking a little bit of 5 Roses, black tea, and just look at my cute cup. My goodness.
That's adorable.
I know. It's so super cute. Well, so technically I got this as like a gift. So you baked a mini cake in the mug, so now I can use the cup. Alrighty. Last episode of the season. Are we ready?
We're so ready.
Hey ho, let's go. Hello! Welcome to Tea and Tales. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'm Madeline Now.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. We want to especially thank E.C. Murray and Brandy Valance for joining us. This week, we're talking about how to fall back in love with reading. Reading is such a huge thing in writing, and I feel like a lot of times we get caught up in writing in our beta groups that we forget to read. I got caught in that whole not reading things for a few years. We have found some resources we'll put in the show notes with ideas and tips and tricks. So let's talk about it.
Fantastic. So actually, one of the articles that we are going to be using for this episode is called How to Fall in Love with Reading by Angela Vass. And I love this quote that she says, falling in love with reading isn't about being perfect. It's about remembering what stories can do for your heart. It's about making space for joy, softness, and imagination in a world that asks so much from us. Whether you read 3 pages or 300, it counts. Whether it's a graphic novel, a romance, or a nature memoir, it counts. Your reading life is yours to reclaim, one chapter at a time. And I just love that because I think it is so very true. Each of us have our own reading journey that we go on or writing journey that we go on. And so I think just in life where you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, it's the same with reading. You shouldn't compare how many books you've read this year compared to your next door neighbor or to someone who reads 500 books a year because that's just going to make you feel bad and sad.
I want to add to that, you shouldn't compare your own reading to yourself. There are years that you're going to be able to read more and years where you'll read less just by matter of course. Maybe you have some big life event that happened and it just takes the time away from reading so you don't read as much. That's okay. The question is, Are you still reading? Are you still looking up books to read? Not, I read 20 last year and I've only read 3 this year. That's okay.
Exactly. Though I do get very negative sometimes because I use Goodreads. And so always every year they have like a reading challenge. And so then I always get so mad about myself because I'm like, I put it on 20 for this year already. And I'm like at 3, I'm like, you know what? And this is where it's perfect because then short tour is coming and novellas. I'm just like, yeah, this counts as a book. I will read it.
It doesn't matter the length, right? Yeah, yeah. 20 pages is still reading a book.
A book is a book, people. A book is a book. Do you know what is really sucky though? A lot of times I do beta reading. And to me, that kind of counts as reading because I'm like, I am literally reading an entire novel. Okay, I spent a lot of time on this. Yet I can't go to Goodreads and type in the title and be like, I read this. Give me a point. So technically, I actually do read more than I think I read. But it's just sucky that I can't put it on my Goodreads.
That's kind of the hole I got stuck in, though, is I was doing so many beta reads and page reading for other authors that I thought, yeah, I'm reading. I'm fine. I know what's coming out in the market. But really, what I knew was what people were trying to get into the market, not what was actually out there. I wasn't reading finished, published, completely edited manuscripts. And there is a difference in that, in the feeling of reading it to begin with, because you can turn off your brain a little bit more, turn off your inner critic to do some joy reading versus your beta reading. But also picking up the voice is a lot easier in a published novel than in a beta read for some reason for me. And I had to remind myself that I couldn't do all my reading in beta read.
Yes, Sarah, you actually do have to read novels that are published, for the thing that we call a query letter.
Right? So
Yeah.
how do we fall back in love with reading? Because if we had done this episode a year ago, I would have been like, I don't know. I don't read any. I've read like 2 books this year. It would have been terrible. What is the number one first thing that you should do if you're trying to get back into reading after you've gotten out of the habit?
I think the best way to start is to start small. And what I mean by starting small, it is read while you're sitting and waiting for the doctor. If you're going to get your license, stand there and read a book. If you are waiting for your McDonald's order, read a book instead of scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or anything like that, which, blue light isn't that great for you when you have to go to sleep. In any case, pick up a book and read those last 20 minutes. So I think that is the best way to kind of start, to just like do small sections, because then you don't feel so overwhelmed to be like, oh my gosh, I have to read this entire 350 pages. No. You can just read for 5 minutes. You can read a chapter. You can read 2 pages.
You can read 2 books if they're children's books.
I mean, exactly.
I think that's kind of what got me into reading a lot more consistently, was reading to my daughter. And I mean, I've always read little books to her when she was younger, but now she's in kindergarten. She's getting bigger books. She's getting attention span to sit through an entire Dr. Seuss book. It's crazy. You think they're so short, and then you realize the 3-year-old's not sitting for that. I've been reading those things to her, and then she started picking books off the shelf at the library that were even longer, like tiny middle grade books that had actual little chapters and things in them. But she can't read those. She's still with basic words. So I have to read them to her, and she'll come and she'll be like, okay, it's our reading hour. And that got me back into the habit of just opening a book, a longer book, not just the kids' books, and opened the door into, well, now what do I want to read that's my level?
I hope all the books that you've read or you put on your reading challenge that you're like, I completed a book. I completed 7.
I actually don't do reading challenges, so I never.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things also that we need to remember with everything else in writing is you have to do what works for you. My sister does reading challenges every year. I know you do reading challenges every year. Reading challenges for me feel like a checklist, a to-do, one more thing on my to-do list, and it takes all the joy out of it.
Yeah.
And then I'm not relaxed. If I'm being forced to read, I just decide, oh, that book sounds good. Oh, I just finished a book. Let's go find a new one. And toured the bookshelves. A lot of the things that I get usually come off of possible comp lists, so I can see if I like my
Okay.
comps, or from other people who say, hey, this book was really, really good, read that.
Okay. So interesting that we do talk about reading challenges and how you say you don't do that because I specifically do reading challenges, not necessarily to be like, oh, I need to read 80 books or 20 books or however many books that year. But I actually love it because I say this in quotation marks, but it kind of forces me to write a little bit review of the book after I've read it. And then it's so
Mm.
nice because then afterwards, if I maybe want to go back and reread something, or if I want to recommend something to someone else, or if someone talks about a book and I'm like, I've read it, but I honestly forgot what I ate yesterday. So never mind a book that I read like 3 years ago. It's nice for me to then go onto Goodreads and go to the book that I did read and see what I actually said about it. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that was actually quite cute. Or I will be like, let's never read that book again.
I think that's a key point in all of this as well, is what are you going to be doing afterward, after you read the book, if you want to be like recommending it to other people and you don't want to lose the name or the title. If I'm getting books at the library, I'm likely to forget what the book was altogether. Ask me in 2 years. It's a really cool book, I think. If I have it on my Kindle on my phone, then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, let me look that up really quick. I also think that leads into the idea of picking the correct book because you don't like to DNF things. I DNF things really fast. And so you do have to make sure that you are picking a book you want to read. If you start reading it and it's killing your desire to read, then maybe you should pick a different book.
I know. It's true. I don't have to finish a book. But I always feel so bad because especially when I do like art reads or something like that, I do feel obligated to finish reading it because I'm like, no, because I do have to leave a review. And I hate it when people are like, this is an ARC read, but I DNF'd it at 2%. And I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about that. So then I kind of feel bad. So then I just feel like I have to read it. I'm like, I have to finish this, even if I didn't like it. But it's so very true because I have found that it does kind of discourage me to read after I've read this book. And it took me like 3 months to read one book. But then I pick up a Eke McBride book and I'm just like, oh my goodness, read it in one day. And I'm like, okay, clearly we do know what I do like.
It's funny to me because in the notes it said avoid dense nonfiction or like a 500-page doorstop or stuff like that. When I first read it, I thought, I love my 500-page books. Leave my fantasy alone. Ugh. So annoyed. But then I had to stop myself and think, okay, if it's 500 pages and I'm 10 pages in and it's just feels like a doorstop, I should
Yeah.
probably switch to a different. It's not the length of the novel I chose as the problem. It's whether I enjoyed it or not. That's the problem.
Absolutely. And I just think the thing is, if you've been in a reading slump, and I think we all know what that means, going into a 500-page book is not going to get you out of your reading slump. Like, just ease yourself in. Like, start with like a short story. Maybe do a little poem over here, a little poem over there. Maybe throw in a little bit, I don't know, middle grade. And then you could kind of build yourself back up again to be like, yeah, now I can read my Lord of the Rings.
I jumped right back in. I don't know what you're talking about. I jumped right back in with a 400 some odd page book. But also that's the genre though. Like I know the genre I love and I know the sort of books in that genre. Even the YAs in my genre tend to be super heavy, like 300 to 400 page books. They're not short. For me, knowing the genre I liked, it totally was a super big, like jumping right back into the deep end book for me. But it's also fun for me. Like I feel if it's a genre you really, really, really love, you're going to pull back in. But to do that, I also didn't jump right back into a book I didn't know. I jumped into an author I loved, something I had read that I knew I loved, even though it was long. And I jumped into that going, I know I'm going to enjoy what this author's doing.
Yes.
Let's go there first.
100%. I can, right this very second as I'm sitting here right now, I can name 5 books that I always go back to when I feel like, yeah, I just need to read, but I don't want to read something new and I just want to read something comforting and something that I already know how it's going to end, even though I kind of do forget still. I kind of know the broad element of what happened in the story, but like all the details, I'm just like, this is new to me. Good to know. But yeah, I 100% agree with that. I always have my favorites. that I go back to. There are not many, I must admit. Like, there's not many that is like my favorite and I like. I'm very adamant to read them every single year, like Claire does her 101 Dalmatians. Definitely reread something, and it definitely counts as reading if you reread something again. 100% you can tick that off as another book that you've read, even though you read it the year before.
And I think that's where keeping a reading journal or doing something like Goodreads to keep track of what you're doing comes in handy, because you can go back and be like, oh, yeah, I really did love that. And I'd love to, just feel that world again, feel that story, those characters again. But then other ways you can do it is to tell another person, hey, I love this book, read this book. But you can also use it to be like, hey, buddy, let's go read this book together. Do some kind of group reading, social reading. That works for some people. It doesn't work for others. If you're super picky like me, I have to find people who are picky in the same way to read with them. I can't just go join any old book club and be happy with what they're going to read. I will give up within a month. But finding a buddy who loves the same kind of book and reading it together. My husband and I are doing a series together right now. He's ahead of me. He started it before I did because I had to finish another book before I got into it.
Okay.
But it's been fun to read along near each other and be able to share ideas.
And especially if you are the person that's ahead of the other person, you're just sitting there and you're like, so what did you think? Oh my God.
Exactly.
I don't know what's more exciting, like someone reading the novel that you wrote, and then you're like, so, do you like it? Do you like it? How about now? How about now? Versus like one of your favorite books, and you're like, oh my gosh, did you see the cliffhanger coming? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes. The experience is so much better when you share it with somebody.
100%. And I've actually seen people that annotate their books and then they would send it to each other. That was like a hard pass for me. I was just like, nope, like no highlighter comes near my book. Thank you very much. But thank you for the suggestion. No, but a lot of people do love doing that. And it's actually, I mean, maybe if it wasn't my book, I wouldn't mind writing in it because I think it would be so fun to actually see other people's comments on certain like lines or certain scenes or something like that. I think it is so much fun because I think it's sometimes the same as when you have beta reading groups, is that every person sees different things while they are reading it, or they interpret a sentence or a moment differently than someone else would do it. And then it's so kind of enlightening to be like, oh, I didn't think of it this way, but now that you mention it, that is so cool, which kind of then blends into like having book clubs. Because I think there's such a great way for you to be discussing a novel. I don't feel book clubs is for me though, because I feel book clubs tend to be like very book clubby books. So it would be like you're more like your upmarket fiction or your commercial fiction or your literary fiction or your women's fiction. And I'm just like, yeah, that's not my type of vibes.
What I've liked doing with book clubs in the past is I find a genre book club instead of your general book club, because
Oh,
they will focus in on a genre, not on the book club fiction that you normally think of.
mm,
Hey, this is a sci-fi fantasy book club. Everything they're going to want to pull up will be in the genres I like.
okay. I like that. I like that. Maybe I should go look for that.
I think that if you're looking at book clubs and you're not really enjoying it, though, that there are different social ways that you can take reading into your life, like joining Discord channels that just chat about books, or joining some group that just do book talk or something like that and recommend books to each other. And then you could talk about, the synopsis of why I like this book and get the same from somebody else so that you get recommendations to each other. Things like that can be just as social as reading a book with each other. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times. People don't think, you know what, I should just go on the reader Facebook page and see what people are talking about, what books are out there I might be missing.
I just had an epiphany. You have that sip and paint where you would like drink wine while you're painting and someone shows you like paint this orchid. I don't know. You should have like a book sip and paint where you like have all read the same book. Like let's say, for example, Akatar. So not naturally you want to draw dry sand. So then naturally they're going to be like, okay, this week or this month, we're going to pick a character from the book. And then someone is going to stand in front and they're going to draw like Rysand or Feyre or whomever, and then you'll be drinking your wine while you're drawing like the man of your dreams in front of you. I feel that's going to be like a smart, like fun thing to do.
And then you could connect with other readers who are also artists.
Exactly. I never said though I can draw. Mine will probably look like one of those stick figures, but you know what? It will still have wings. So I think I'm fine.
Yeah, I don't draw, so that was not for me. I love the idea. Like the idea could be moved into different areas as well.
Exactly. Do you have 30 seconds in America? I don't know. Is that a board game you play?
30 seconds. There's so many board games. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a South African thing. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's almost like a little trivia where you have to pick up a card and then someone has to explain something to you, but they can't say the word.
Yeah, we have like a billion different versions of that.
Versions of
Yeah.
that, yeah. You could probably do that as well. So many different ways, to connect with people and share your love for books. Just love it.
And it doesn't have to be reading the book together. Broaden the horizons and start something. If you're not seeing what you want, start something and people will come, because if you're looking for it, other people probably are too, honestly.
Which then brings me to creating a reading routine for yourselves. Now, I know we've talked about like starting small by like sitting at the doctor's office or reading before you go to bed and things like that. And I think if you actually, just like when you are a writer and you have a designated time every day in your schedule to be like, for this 30 minutes, I'm going to sit and I'm going to write however many words I can write, or I'm going to spend this amount of time doing research for the book I wanted to do, or any other way you want to do it. I think it's the same with reading. Like I have tried now every night before I go to bed, I have to go to sleep reading a book. Okay, no, I'm not going to sleep reading a book. I can never fall asleep reading a book, but like I have to read before I go to bed. Sometimes it's easy because I'm just like, yeah, okay, at least the chapter didn't like end on a cliffhanger, so I can just go to sleep. But then other times I'm just like, you know what? I feel this was a very bad idea. Maybe I should do it in the mornings, like just wake up earlier and start reading. I think if you just kind of find yourself like a little time during the day, every day also kind of looks different. Not every single hour in your day always looks the same. But I think if you can just squeeze in a little bit of time to read, that might be a nice little way to catch up on your reading and actually be excited because you're like, oh my goodness, it's 6 o'clock. Where's my tea so I can go read?
Especially if there is something constant, like the kids go to school at this time, then I can come home and get my drink and sit down and read for 30 minutes before I go to work or before I go do the housework or whatever. I think those sorts of routines help to get your brain into a better mode. And then it gets to the point where the reading becomes the problem and you don't do other things you're supposed to do. And that's where I'm at right now. So I have to use reading as an award. Like I cannot read the next chapter until I have edited this chapter that
Wow.
I wrote. I think having that vision in your head of, I do love reading, and I'm going to get back to the reading by doing these little things every day. And eventually that love is going to kick in so much that I'm going to have to stop myself from reading to do other things in my life. That it'll come back. That we have tides in our lives. Sometimes we just aren't reading as much, and sometimes we read too much. But I think also talking about that, you have to also find the vibes. Like if the vibe has left your life and you want it back, you need to go where you're going to get it. Places like the bookstore or the library that have those cozy little nooks already set up for you. And then you are like, oh, this is so nice. Maybe I should do this at home. And then you go home and you make your own and feed on each other.
Yeah, and I think my favorite place is like secondhand bookstores because I'm just like, oh, the gems that I find there. I do feel I can buy more books in one shot than if I just go to like Barnes and Noble or something like that. So that is always fun to find little new gems. I'm a cover girl, so naturally covers draw my attention. So if your cover draws my attention, the chances of me actually buying your book is pretty good.
Yeah. But you have to be there to get that vibe, to want to buy the book. Because if you're just going about your normal life and nowhere around where you're going to see books, you're not going to buy books. You're not going to check out books. Then you're not going to sit down and read them either. You have to put yourself in the environment and create the environment for reading. And I feel like sometimes people want to just have it happen. Like the books are there. It'll happen. but it won't without you doing something to bring it back into your life.
Yeah. I think I told you this story before in one of the previous episodes, but literally, I was in the library and I was actually not even there for myself. I was like picking books up for one of the kids or something like that. And its display elements are so important because it literally made me stop in my tracks. And I saw this book and I was like, I need you right now. And I read it and I was like, why is this so amazing? Which then brought me back to the library and I was like, where's all the other books of this person? Because this is fantastic. It just kind of snowballed into me going to the library every week because I was like, okay, what other cool books am I going to find here?
And then you find yourself doing things like looking for a reading tablet, or what kind of app do I put on my phone to remind myself to read. I have a whole folder on my main screen that is just all my different ways to read. The ebooks, the audiobooks, all my different apps for the different ways that I read books are all in that little folder. And it's now habit for me to just open the folder and be like, okay, which book am I reading? And so I need to be in this one, or I'm doing dishes and cooking dinner. So audiobook right now. It's become my favorite little spot on my phone. But that doesn't work for some people. Some people, you get on your phone and your finger goes right to that little blue and white F, or the bird, the little bee. That one gets you sometimes too. The camera,
Yep, yep.
those little icons, they take your time away. And so if you can't, keep that finger from going to those buttons, then you want to get yourself something like a dedicated reading tablet, where when I pick this up, all I can do is pick a book to read.
Yeah. So that kind of also blends with experimenting with other formats. And when I say that, I'm literally saying like audiobooks, like Sarah said, like you might be a reader, like physical copy reader, but sometimes maybe you just need something different. Maybe you just need to listen to an audiobook. Maybe you just need to read a book on a screen. Maybe you need to all of a sudden just read a graphic novel, or you need to find yourself a very nice poem or a Shakespearean sonnet that you need to read, or something like that, just to get you out of that reading slump of the same thing over and over and over again. Because as much as I do love romance, like sometimes I'm just kind of fed up with romance. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, love romance. And then other times I'm just like, I want to murder someone. Where's my crime novel right now? Variety, it's the spice of life.
Your life will change as well. Before I had a child, I had a lot more time to sit and open a physical book. And so I did a lot. And then she was born, and it's like, I'm changing diapers, I'm cleaning bottles, I'm trying to get her ready for school, I'm trying to keep up on the housework. And it feels like one person added 5 times the housework. And so I don't have as much time to sit down with a physical book as much as I want to do it. But I still need the stories in my life. And that was part of what created my slump, was the fact that I felt like I had no time to read a physical book, and I had to find an alternative to that so I could still get stories. But I also found that I enjoyed the audiobooks a lot more than the physical books. When I'm reading a physical book, my eyes will jump lines, I will flip words around, I will get super confused. It's why I'm a slow beta reader as well, because I get through something, I'm like, is this what they really just said? And I have to go back and reread it to make sure that I read it correctly the first time. And I don't have that with audiobooks. In the audiobooks, I'm hearing it as it is, and it's processing faster in my brain. So I'm understanding the story on a different level. I still love reading for other reasons, but to discount, I know there's people out there who are like, oh no, you don't want to do audiobooks. It takes so much away from the experience. But for some people, it adds to the experience. And if you're struggling to love books because of something like that, try a different format that might work better for the way your brain needs to process.
100%. And here's the other thing though, like I do not like audiobooks at all, which is quite ironic though, because I do listen to podcasts. I'm like, I don't know how that math works, but I cannot listen to audiobooks of like novels, especially if it's romance. I can't. I have tried and it does not work for me. But then, listen to this. So the only audiobooks that I actually will listen to is autobiographies by celebrities read by the celebrity themselves. So like I listened to Amy Poehler's novel, I listened to her book, I listened to Nick Offerman's book, I listened to Zachary Levi's book, and I'm currently listening to Barbara Streisand. Like the fact that Barbara Streisand is like reading her own novel is just like, oh. So also when you do listen to audiobooks, you can go as fast and slow as you want, as your little heart desires, as long as it makes sense for you. Yes, I think it honestly just depends also on the genre that you listen to or that you want to read.
And how you are enjoying it, because you might enjoy it where somebody else would be like, "No, that puts me to sleep. Like, I can't do that." You never know. I want to make this last point, considering that you need to read for you. Read for your time, for your enjoyment, and like nobody else is watching. There's nobody sitting there watching you read except maybe the library saying it's got to be back in 4 weeks. But you can recheck it out. They don't care if you recheck it out as long as there's no waiting list, and you can take your time. You can read as slow or as fast as you want. Nobody's standing over your shoulder telling you read faster, get it done. This isn't school. You're not trying to, get done in a month so you can write a book report for your teacher before the semester is over. That is not what this is. You're relaxing. I remind myself of this all the time because when I read physical books, like I said, I read so slow. But my husband has ADHD and he will read the same book 5 times faster than I do. He's always ahead of me in our reading stuff because he's such a fast reader and I'm a much, much slower reader. But then we each get something different out of it and enjoy it in a different way. So allow yourself to be you and to enjoy reading the way you need to enjoy it, or it will become work and then you won't want to read again.
Yeah. No, it is very true. And I think at the end of the day, we read because we find enjoyment out of it. We read because it takes us, especially if you read like fantasy or something like that, it takes you to a different world. It opens up that imagination of yours. And it makes you feel just so light and so like whatever is happening in the real world right now, at least you can escape into the book world and just like, breathe a little bit. I was laughing on the inside when you were saying like read like nobody's watching because I was like, girl, I do that all the time. I would be sitting in the train or somewhere like that, and then I'm like a super spicy scene, and I'm just like, interesting. A very like a neutral expression face that I'm having here, and I'm like, cool, cool, cool. I'm just pretending nobody's watching me because, let's hope. Let's hope. I generally tend to read when I'm at work as well, like when we have tea time or something like that. And when I read, I'm reading. I'm like, there's no reason for you to talk to me while I'm reading. Like, unless I'm bleeding, why are you talking to me? I'll be reading and then I will just be like, Madeleine! And I'm like, what? And they're like, I was talking to you. And I'm like, why? Can you see I'm busy? They've learned. They're like, they know if I'm reading, they should not even I'm not there. Basically.
You're going to have to pull me out of the book world if you want me to be in the real world.
Exactly. I feel this was like a very fun episode to end our season on. For the month that we are not going to be in your ears or in your face, take that book that you've been eyeing from afar and go read it. Or find yourself a little nook that you can go snuggle up to with a cup of coffee or tea or hot chocolate and read that Sweet Valley High novel that you've missed reading since you were 12.
And then find us on our social media and tell us what book you're reading so that we know what book out there we should be going to read. We like to keep things short here on Tea and Tales. Get your fingers back on the keyboard and your pens back on paper.
And if you like what we are doing here, if you love the topics that we are discussing and the guests that we have on, go follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Tea and Tales Podcast, and on Twitter/X and TikTok at Podcast Details. And then go to that purple icon on your device, go to Spotify, go like, go share, go comment, so that you can help us go up, up, up. It's a moment.
Then join us again on June 29th, 2026, when we release our first episode of season 5. We're bringing back our favorite guest, our best friend, Claire Draycott. She'll be helping us talk about when, what, and why writers read. I feel like it's going to just flow right off of this last episode of season 4 so well, and we hope to see you then. Happy writing.
Bye.